Good.
Any need for executive session?
There's a possible discussion of legal matters relating to fireworks that we could have in executive session later.
On the agenda?
Yes, we might have to table the department fleet discussion with Chad, as tonight is the night he's coaching a playoff game for one of his kids.
Move to accept the agenda as amended. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, anything on the minutes from last meeting?
If not, here they go.
Yeah, let's see.
Tom, I'm gonna ask you to be the
I just want to keep it right there.
Right in that
puddle.
one spot.
Puddle.
I didn't make fun of it. Yeah,
Yeah, sorry.
so I keep the cap on my.
All right, any questions on the orders?
Well, I notice here we've got the Depot Hill project here is 4 different figures in there, totals up to about $11,000. Gosh, isn't the engineering getting pretty well done on that?
It is close to, because the Depot Hill pump stations are in the ground and operational. The only things that really remain, Joe, are the waiting for about 12 more weeks for our towable generator unit to arrive, and that really shouldn't require any engineering. The last issue is the automation of the aeration at the wastewater plant. That price has spiked, and so now the Water and Sewer Commission is looking at possible alternatives for that last $100,000 or so of the bond.
Huh.
So there shouldn't be much more engineering, I agree with you.
Then there's on the back of that same page is a water loan that's $58,000. Is that, that's just a payment on our,
That's right. That's the annual payment for the
Right.
upgrade we did about 10 years ago.
is that anywhere near paid
I'm
off?
afraid not. Those
No.
are 3-year commitments.
Oh,
We're on your what?
And
it's gonna outlive me for sure, John.
I can't promise that, Joe. You get around pretty well for a young fella. I wouldn't bet on it.
I will.
I'll schedule you for the party when the last payment's being made.
Okay, that's enough for me.
those are the ones I had.
Okay,
Anything else?
here are the orders.
Have that one started.
And payroll, Joe.
Town managers report.
Thank you, Alicia. Latest from Neil H. Daniels is that they plan to begin work to repair the deck of the Kendall Hill Road Bridge on Tuesday of next week, June 22nd. That's as of this morning. The project, again, is expected to take 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what they find beneath the surface of the several problem areas. The town has received a signed contract from the town of Chittenden regarding annual patrol and animal control coverage. The town has received word that unfortunately its grant applications for Class 2 highway funding and structures funding this year have been denied. There will be an Amtrak reopening ceremony at the Rutland Amtrak station on Monday, July 19th at 7:30 a.m. The roughly 90-minute event will involve a speech or two at the train station and then a free train ride over to Castleton with a return trip via bus. If you'd like to attend this event, please let me know so I can give your RSVP to the Regional Planning Commission. The town clerk hopes to be able to propose tax rates for the select board's review and adoption at the select board's meeting of Wednesday, July 7th, which is our next meeting in 3 weeks from today. The town has just submitted its 5th and final request for reimbursement for 80% of the costs associated with the salt shed construction project, and we expect payment shortly. So we should be able at that position to provide a final accounting to everybody by the July 7th meeting. Again, because there will be 3 weeks before the next select board meeting and the end of the fiscal year is on June 30th, the bookkeeper would appreciate receiving select board member signatures on fiscal year-end orders on Wednesday, June 30th. Town manager will give you a call on or before that day as a reminder to come in. Engineers plan to travel through town on Friday, June 18th to evaluate possibilities for adding to our existing sidewalk network in town. They will arrive here at the town office parking lot at 10 a.m. on Friday, if anybody would like to come along and walk some of the routes with them. Meanwhile, a dedicated web page is being set up with some material and information already provided from the engineers, and that should be live, I'm hoping, in the next few days, so that we can use it to distribute information about the study and collect public input like surveys and that kind of thing. The Regional Planning Commission reports that the town's 2021 local emergency management plan has been approved by the state, and there will be our first in-person staff meeting, fully in-person staff meeting here at the town offices on Thursday, June 24th at 9 a.m. As always, select board members are invited to attend. Again, it's the first time we've all been able to get together in 18 months.
Do you have any questions for John?
I have a question, just for the minutes. Is there going to be a closure for Independence Day?
Yes, and it's, I think, the 5th, Monday the 5th, since the holiday falls on Sunday the 4th.
Any select board member remarks?
The only thing I've got, Rutland Regional last night, Belco made their presentation and we took no action. It was just a 45-day notice.
So, okay.
What's your step, fellas? There's a cord across the line.
Oh, really?
I wouldn't want a lawyer to have a lawsuit on his hands.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I'll talk to our attorney.
Yeah, I heard he's tough.
Nobody has anything else? Any public comment? Guess everybody's here to present things anyway, so yeah, I know. All right, then let's start off with the Velco presentation.
We have Shayna Louiselle and Dan Poulin, is that right?
Correct.
rep from Velco who would make a presentation. Sorry if I butchered your name.
That's all right. Yeah, good evening. Thank you very much for giving us a few minutes of your time to talk about a project that's happening right here in the Florence, Pittsford area. Most of you know who Velco is. Velco operates, manages, constructs, designs, maintains all of our facilities. Our core work is really about reliability and keeping the lights on, whether that's our 800 miles of transmission lines or our 1,600 miles of fiber optic that connects all the transmission and distribution utilities across the state, as well as our radio network. It's reliability. Without that, we have issues. So if you don't hear about Velco or you don't know who we are, it means we're doing our job really well. So tonight we're here to talk to you about a substation condition assessment program. And one of the projects that is proposed on the table is the Florence substation upgrade. We have 55 plus substations across Vermont. Many of these substations were built in the when Velco was established in the 50s and 60s. So as you may expect, they need some renovations and modifications to keep up with federal and national standards of how a substation should be performing. We're here tonight to share the details with the select board, answer any questions, and with any project, especially when we're permitting at the Public Utility Commission, input is always key. Input prior to filing our petition. So whatever, if there are any items that we can, details that we can iron out in advance, our regulators like us to solve problems and not bring them problems. So Dan Poulin is our project manager, so he'll be providing all the details and answering any questions. And I'm really here just as a fly on the wall to kind of absorb any input that we might get tonight. So, great. Thank you.
Thanks.
So, if you go to the next slide. So, as Shana mentioned, in 2013, we started or developed a program to assess our aging infrastructure. Well, we started two programs, one for our lines and poles and one for our substations. And we selected about 13 substations that were aged and needed to be addressed. And we developed criteria to review them. We checked the steel, we checked concrete, we checked their performance, to standards. Is their fence height high enough? Things like that. So to date, we have completed 4 of those 13. We have 2 that are in progress right now, and 2 that we're filing for. We have to file our certificate of public good, an application for certificate of public good with the Public Utility Commission. And so in preparation for that permit, which may take 6 to 9 months to get, part of the program is to solicit public input. So Florence Substation was built in 1978. It's a pretty simple substation, or pretty straightforward substation. We bring power in at 115 kV from our power line, and then we step it down with a transformer to 46 kV, and then have breakers that distribute it to Green Mountain Power. They're our owner, and they're the ones that will bring the power to, in this case, Omea and Lester and Brandon in the surrounding area. So Florence Substation, if you're not aware, is located very close to Omea's plant, Whipple Hollow Road. The plant, our substation is located here. There's a driveway off Whipple Hollow. I'm sorry. And then these purple lines indicate the transmission lines that go to Green Mountain Power. And Omea's facility is right up here. Next slide. So like I was mentioning, this is our transmission line that runs from West Rutland to Middlebury, 115 kV. There's a transformer here that steps it down to 46 kV. And then similar to like in your house, the breakers that supply power to the distribution utility, GMP in this case. And then we also have a cap bank for voltage support. One of the issues that we have, if one of these breakers either fails and operates, opens up, without cause, which occasionally they do, and particularly when they're aged, they do, or we need to take the breaker out for maintenance, this line is no longer supported. So that's one of the issues that we addressed in the condition. Next slide, please. One of the things when we were doing the assessment, we noticed there was problems with the steel. There was a building in there that houses our protection and control systems, which is aged. There are a lot of electromechanical relays. Now we use solid state relays. They're capable of performing much better, more reliable, and much quicker, so they're safer. And the buildings often need to be replaced in order to house the bigger relay systems. We also have redundant relay systems, which a lot of the older systems don't have. But back on this, so to the prior slide. So one thing we realized when doing this work, and sometimes we have to do it, we can't take the substation out long enough to perform all the maintenance that we need to do. That would just be unreliable. So we have to build a temporary substation while we do the construction. That can be kind of expensive. We did one in Barrie and Berlin that cost $1 million. So we knew we needed to do that at Florence. So we started looking at alternatives. And what we've come up with, and one of the ideas that we liked was to build a more reliable substation, if we could, starting. So there's a ring bus configuration. The other configuration I just showed was radial. This is now a ring bus configuration. You still have the power coming in at 115 kV. You step it down to 46 kV, but instead of having radial breakers, they're connected in a ring. So you still have the tap to Leicester, to Proctor, and to Omea. But now in the event that one of these breakers fails, there's still another breaker feeding this line. They're redundant. And we can take out any of these breakers to perform maintenance on it and still not interrupt service. So it's a more reliable, more maintainable system. It's more desirable. So that's what we've decided to do here at Florence. Given this cost savings, now we don't need to build a temporary substation. We can build a new substation adjacent to the existing substation, and then when we commission it, we can remove the other one. Next slide, please. So here the plan is to construct this new 115 to 46 kV ring bus. I've listed some of the things that will be changing, replacing the breakers, which are owned by Green Mountain Power in this case, upgrading the control building and protection system. And we're also, the transformer that exists today doesn't have a passive oil containment system. It's just basically berms in the dirt. So now we'll be putting in one that will capture all the oil if there was a spill. That's our new standard. We'll also be changing the fence surrounding the substation. One of the things that we need to do now to do this is we didn't have enough room. The site location is very tricky. We're up against, and maybe it's in the next slide. Yeah, here's a slide of the overall, an aerial view, and this was in the 45-day letter. There's ledge up against this substation here, existing today, and then there's wetlands and floodplain in this area. So we're kind of hemmed in there. In fact, the land that we're on now is very soft. The transformer has settled about 6 inches on one side, so we've got it shimmed up. And also the concern that we're so close to wetlands and floodplain, we want to make sure there's a good spill containment system.
How did you withstand Irene? Was there a problem at all then?
There wasn't there. I think the water got high, but we didn't have any real issues there. But had we had oil leaking, that would have been an issue. So in order to do this project now, we're going to be purchasing land from Omea, 3 acres. Adjacent to it, our property ends here. We're going to purchase 3 acres. We'll build the new substation. The blue indicates the old location of the old substation. The red is the location of the new substation. And we will have to do some blasting in this area, some ledge removal. We'll be using blasting techniques to do that. And maybe in the next slide, there's another description showing this is a topology map, so you can see where there's lines that are close together. they indicate change in elevation or change in grade. So here, very high, very steep bank of ledge that we'll have to remove. And then this area here is wetlands, and this blue line indicates the floodplain. Now the next slide. Yeah, so the schedule for this, we filed our 45-day notice on May 24th, and we expect to file for our certificate of public good in August, with the hope of beginning construction in May of 2022, with a completion December of 2022. So it's a pretty straightforward project. What's unique about Florence is most of the substations, we don't put a new substation, we just rebuild what we've got there. But given the fact that OMIA is such an important customer, largest industrial customer in the state now, we just think it makes good sense to do that, improve the reliability.
Dan, if I can prompt you with a question.
Yeah.
This radial transition to a ring bus, that is a design concept that we have been doing across the state.
Yeah,
It's not special to just one substation.
That's right. Yeah, this is not a new approach for us. That's right. This is something that we do very often, particularly in new substations where we have the option.
So obviously you're taking the old substation out.
Yes.
Will you leave that pad there in case you ever need to expand back over in there, or will you reclaim that back to?
Well, no, we'll remove all the foundations and everything and just make it natural again.
Natural again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although in the event that we needed to expand, we could expand in that area. There is enough, if you back up a couple of slides, maybe one more slide. Back to the topology. Yeah, right here. So you can see these are the breakers here in the breaker ring. And then there's some shaded area, which is, there's room for expandability. So we could put 2 more breakers in there someday if that is needed for whatever reason. GMP wanted more, there's more load to serve or something. We could do that.
Is there any information at all that the assessor might like to see about the value of the current apparatus versus the value of once it's completed, what it might be worth?
Yes, I don't exactly have those figures now. I think the total project will cost about $10 million is our expectation. But I don't know how that works out with the assessor.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
But I can tell you it will likely be an increase.
Right.
Very, very likely.
That's why you're such welcome guests.
Yeah. I will point out, sometimes I forget to point this out, the way our transmission line runs here, right now, there's one straight shot into the substation. We are going to have to add a couple transmission poles now to kind of make that in there. There's one neighbor that has visibility to these lines on Whipple Hollow. I met with them today. They didn't really have any concerns about that. They do. We will talk to them about blasting and do like a pre-blasting survey just to make sure that anything we do doesn't affect they were mostly concerned about their well.
Those are the people we mentioned earlier.
Yes. Yeah.
Right across.
The towns.
Yeah. And, we certainly don't expect that we'll be there. They're quite a ways away as far as blasting, but we don't feel that will cause any issue, but we'll back it up,
In terms of public engagement, maybe mention that OMIA's community
Yes.
distribution list.
Yeah, we've also talked to OMIA, and they have a community
Issues team.
issues team.
Yeah.
So we're going to work with them and just to make sure that we communicate everything that's happening. We'll have increased truck traffic on the road. We're not sure exactly what we're going to do with the overburden from the blasting. Maybe we'll crush it on site. Maybe we'll bring it. There's a quarry very close. Maybe we'll bring it there and have them crush it if they want it. We just need to make up those details. But the idea is to minimize as much noise and traffic as we can.
We haven't met in the 18 months of the pandemic, but I imagine we'll start rescheduling our occasional meetings with the team.
That might be a great point of contact for any updates. In some projects where it's very heavily populated with residential homes, we'll often start a project kind of update email list. That's something of interest to that group. It doesn't have to be every day or every week. It could just be kind of a monthly, here's kind of what to expect. We're open to communicating as often or as detailed as that group desires.
We see something like that on the Route 7 project. We get a weekly update on construction, so maybe something on a longer term interim basis.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll seem to like it.
Yeah. Usually, more communication is better than less.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if there's more questions or.
You gave the same presentation you did last night. Good job.
I was so rushed last night that I didn't
Oh, yeah.
have a chance to end with my normal ending is that we do like to file our projects with the Public Utility Commission with the support of the town and the Regional Planning Commission. So if that is an option to have the select board, and we'll also be meeting with the Planning Commission here in about a week.
That's right, June 24th.
Right.
Yeah.
Thursday. We would gladly accept any type of support or at the very least no objection.
Right.
Ooh, you unanimous consent. Second it. There.
Yeah, and certainly if there's any questions that come up, please contact us. If you think of something tonight that you didn't ask or you're curious about.
Can you move unanimous consent?
I know, you might want to make a,
I think you gotta reword that a little
Yeah, you
bit.
gotta reword that part.
They used to say,
I'm thinking about my gun.
they used to say what's good for General Motors is good for America. So what's good for Almy is good for Pittsford, right?
right.
I'm
Velcro.
putting you on the spot tonight. I'm happy to follow up and I can give you a very simple template too, or if there's some.
I'll change my motion to no motion at all, but I do say it.
Yeah, it should be.
General unanimous consent. Approve the project.
Well, can you change that to provide a letter of support or something along that line? Just by saying unanimous, not that I'm not in, but you're trying to force us all to.
No, no, I forgot.
How are you gonna vote?
You for it or you're not for it. To the program.
As somebody who might be tasked with writing such a letter, would you like to authorize the town manager by general consent to
I think
issue a
general
supporting
consent.
General
letter?
consent for the town manager to write a letter to be voted on at the next meeting.
I think so.
Yes.
Sounds good.
That's, yes.
We'll take care of it.
I like that guy.
Been around a long time. Commercial construction, so I know how these things work.
Is July 7th soon enough to get such a letter?
Absolutely. We'll be filing in August, right? Early August.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because Rutland Regional doesn't meet again until September, so,
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I'll get a hold of Ed and see what he
Yes.
does.
Well, he has called special meetings before, just so you know.
All right, well,
All right,
thank you. That was a
thank
great
you.
Presentation.
Good luck with your project.
Yeah.
Thank you very much again for the time.
Thanks. Thank you.
Now, Kelly might need a minute to disengage, or you're all set? Okay.
She's right,
Good.
right there.
Look, she knows what's going on. All right, so I guess we'll go right into a discussion of state and local fireworks laws and town permitting.
Just as a starting point, Alicia, if I could, we became aware Rutland Town had originally revoked the retail sales license or permit issued to CNC Fireworks due to what they believed was the impact of a Supreme Court case out of Vermont. And that has prompted Pittsford, which is the other town in which they have retail sales, to begin looking into the matter and doing some research. Gary,
Behind you.
Gary's here to kind of observe and to counsel us later in executive session. But I believe CNC Fireworks folks are here, maybe with their attorney, to give us their impression about what has happened in Rutland, what's the latest, and have you reached some sort of understanding with Rutland Town that we could benefit from?
So my name is Charlie Romeo. I'm a lawyer down at Ryan Smith and Carbine in Rutland, and I'm here with Chip and Chuck Greeno. Where we're at currently, we're able to work things out with Rutland Town. We sat down in Joe O'Rourke in my office, talked with Chuck and Chip, and went over the Supreme Court decision and understand the court has now clarified the law for us, in addition to begging the legislature for additional clarification. That clarifies that the only legal sales of fireworks are to those folks who have a duly issued permit from the municipality where they're going to shoot the display off for a supervised public display. Apparently different places in the state were doing it differently, so the Vermont Supreme Court's given us some guidance. We met with Rutland Town. We explained that, we understand the law now is that, CNC can only sell to those folks who have a permit, and that's the only thing that they can get a permit from a town to sell is to those who have those permits to have those displays. And so with that understanding, we met with the select board last night, in fact, and the permit for CNC was reinstated with some clarifying conditions. So we were able to work it out with them. I chatted with Chuck and Chip a little earlier this evening and looking at their current permit from you folks. And from our perspective, we think the current language of the permit as it stands would cover the situation even with the Vermont Supreme Court's ruling, because the permit was issued subject to the applicant's obligation. Sorry, wrong paragraph here. If they have to sell in a manner not inconsistent with federal, state, town law. So we know now the law is you can't sell if they don't have a permit from where they're going to shoot it off, and Chuck and Chip know that. So we think with this understanding, we're covered under the current town permit, and we'd ask that it be continued as is.
Question. The final paragraph says, this permit is issued subject to applicant's CNC's obligation to refuse to sell any fireworks to any resident of Pittsford unless the Pittsford resident has a valid town-issued fireworks permit in hand. Would CNC be agreeable to just making that a requirement across the board for all your customers at your Pittsford location? That they all must have a town permit.
Right. We almost think you could drop that.
Right, because it's kind of redundant.
Kind of redundant with
Paragraph. Yeah. So either way, that.
My question is we have competitors right now that are selling. I have a slip that a guy bought from today with it, didn't have to have a permit, didn't have to have anything. And now he smells the blood in the water, and he's down here advertising on the TV, on the radio. I mean, they're cutting our throat. I mean, if we have to, I don't know why we can't just run our permit out the way we have it and let the towns, if they all give permits anyways, and half of them do and half of them don't. I mean, I don't know how to explain it more than, I don't think it's we have to, what am I trying to say? I don't think that we should have to regulate the other towns. Right. Let them regulate their own. And we regulate town of Pittsford. We do not sell to anybody in the town of Pittsford.
And I think what the town manager was getting at, with the laws that we now know it to be, because there's two permits involved, I think, as most folks know. There's the permit to sell and store that CNC gets for the town where they have their location, and then wherever the display is going to happen, that town's got to give a permit to the folks who are going to be, setting off the display. So with that, in mind, I think CNC knows that, if a Pittsford resident's going to set off a display in Pittsford, they got to have a permit from the town fire chief, to do that in Pittsford. I think under the current, permit and consistent, not inconsistent. It being consistent with the law, they know that, and I think that they would abide by the permit as is. And I think, with that understanding, I think, Chuck, I think that's where we're at, is just leave the permit the way it is, and we know what the Supreme Court's told us now, and stay the course.
And I know Butch, I don't know if he talked to you, John, or
I
not.
have not talked to Butch.
Well, he lied to me then, because he said he got.
I talked to him a few days ago about a variety of topics. I don't recall that topic of the fireworks.
But he was supposed to talk to you about how they are gonna change the law and how they're gonna do it the way Pittsford wanted it done to start with.
Butch has tried to get the legislature to act on this, and he has not had much success, I'm afraid, so far. But maybe with this new Supreme Court case, that'll be more impetus for them to take action. As to your competitors, maybe you'd want to be in touch with the state about them behaving illegally.
Right.
So we're here to answer any questions or concerns that the board may have, and appreciate the invite to speak with you tonight. And other than to just, we know what the court said and think the permit covers, we just ask that it.
I would just encourage the board to ask whatever questions you have, but not to make any commitments until you've heard from your attorney.
Yeah. I don't have any other questions.
You people would like to have things just stay the way they are presently, is that?
Yeah, I mean, this is our busiest month.
Right.
I mean, and they're gonna take 3/4 of our business away. Is what's gonna happen. And this should have been brought up last August with Rutland Town.
That was a question of mine. How can
Last August. Now we're
why it's
sitting on thousands and thousands of dollars that we can't get rid of because of this court thing. We're in thousands. We're gonna have to fold up. Thousands.
One of the board members said last night that it is difficult sometimes to be on a board when there's a small mob that is constantly yelling that there's an issue from Rutland City. We're not even in Rutland City. It's not even a Rutland City board, but they have to. And so I believe in the beginning, Charlie, to even say that they were not, they thought that the way the law was written, that the town was not allowed to write permits for any personal use. So why give us a permit to sell if the town's not allowed to sell? Through looking at the law and talking with the attorneys, they now see that was a mistake. You can write permits for public displays to people as long as they might meet the criteria. There's no reason not to. So that's where they backtracked and now had to then say, okay, well, now as long as you're going to follow the rules the way that the Supreme Court said, we've never been in violation. Rutland Town has never written one ticket. They had the chief of police there last night.
And those minutes are in everybody's packet tonight.
So, there's not even been a town violation. There's been no violations. We have not changed what we've done at all. The letter of the law has not been changed at all. It's been this court's reading of it. And so that, I don't believe that the state has even sent anything out to all the towns saying, please rein in your fireworks stores. It just was a ruling. Because of the complaints, there was a person that picked up on the ruling and gave that to the board. And then tried to push that through to pull our permit to get rid of us, basically. And it took us to get an attorney, go through the law, and they then had to see, yes, well, can't just pull their permit, they haven't done anything wrong, and there's still meat on the bone, less meat, but meat on the, try to make a business out of this instead of just pulling the permit out from under us. So we're hoping that Pittsford will just support us like our competitors, towns that right now are supporting and waiting to see if something gets through the legislature. If it does, hooray. Hopefully they will fix all of this and make it easier for all of us. If not, we are willing to comply with the way the law is. Either that or I'm gonna have to start growing corn or, pick another business to get into because.
I think just to put a point on it, I think in the decision, no less than at least 3 times, the court said the legislature needs to fix this. And they noted that it wasn't being done consistently throughout the state. But we have what we have for now in the court's decision, and look to see what's going to be happening in the next year or so. But, we understand now it's not that general retail sales are not allowed, that you've got to have that duly issued permit for a supervised public display. And, the Greenos know that. And, the current permit language would allow for that. And we'd like to go forward and as they have and see what happens, next legislative session.
All right. Anything else? All right.
Thanks very much, guys, for coming.
Thank you for listening.
I'll follow up with you as soon as we have any word for you.
Okay,
I don't know if it'll be
right after the
nights.
4th, I hope.
Okay. Put it this way, put it this way, our next meeting isn't until July 7th.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
I don't know if they'll act tonight.
All right, thank you guys very much.
Yeah,
Thank
take care.
you.
See ya. Would you like us to stay around for, or you're all set with us
No,
for
we,
tonight then?
Are we set for?
I have a question.
Oh,
Okay, we don't decide on the
Just I
permit
wanna
tonight,
make
it's
sure.
still valid.
Yeah, until we do otherwise.
yeah, so everything just stands as is.
I'll make sure that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gary can confirm that for you later.
Watch your step. I got it.
Yeah, don't trip on the cord. We got lawyers in.
We got two or three. We got three
Help him
lawyers.
over it. Yeah, there you go.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
All right, so even though Chad's not here, though, we should also probably talk about that grant and aid, because isn't that due on the 25th?
It is. The 25th is the deadline. It's something we've applied for several years now, and it's probably the least bureaucratic grant program out there. They simply ask us, do we want the money? We typically say yes, and they typically give us 80% of our cost to do the project, doing it in-house with our local labor as in-kind for the 20%. So we're really not out of pocket in terms of an investment. And this time, Chad has some additional roadside ditching he's proposing to do along Fire Hill Road. And as I say, we've done this for several years in a row. The first thing we have to do is sign a letter of intent that we intend to apply for the program.
How do they figure out this funding piece?
I think they've got a pool of money and they distribute it to all the eligible towns. And of course, to the extent that some people might decide one year not to do it, maybe that means more money that's available in the next cycle. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we've always gotten something in the neighborhood of $15,000, $18,000, $20,000 as a pot to work with. I do have the letter if you'd like to approve seeking that grant funding.
I think so.
There's a single line for duly authorized representatives, which I view to be you folks. So good luck getting all your signatures in there, Joe.
Down there, went to the back.
Is somebody in the bathroom?
Power.
I don't know.
Everybody, they leave it out of here. Sound like the blob coming in.
I muted him.
Thank you. Oh boy, that is a small line.
Very small anyway. I'm not gonna read it.
Update on Depot Hill Sewer Project.
Yes, the town has placed an order, as I mentioned, for the portable generator capable of servicing either of the two new pump stations on Depot Hill or the Elm Street pump station. So we have some flexibility there. It's all part of the bond-funded Depot Hill Sewer Project. As I mentioned, also due to price increases in the aeration automation portion of the project, the Water and Sewer Commission was meeting last night and started the discussion about how we might move forward maybe by bypassing that portion of the project in favor of something more affordable. Things like a portable generator for the wastewater treatment plant were discussed. We're going to be gathering more information. The Water and Sewer Commission ultimately will come to a decision on to how to move forward, and we'll certainly notify the select board of that.
And can't ARPA funds be used for this?
It could certainly be. However, we do already have the bond vote authority, which provides for a 50% a reduction in any construction costs for the project. So you might take the position that we have enough needs in water and sewer infrastructure to get 100% funding on some and still accept the 50% funding on the remaining 100,000 or so that we have in that bond package. So it's not one or the other. It could be a both, actually.
And then is Bob Harnish, is that him on the phone? I can't see that.
We need to ask who Moto G Power is if they want to identify themselves.
All right. Okay, we'll move on to old business then. The substation.
Yeah, speaking of substations, this is the fire substation that we're talking about. I've spoken with Chief Hooker about what features a new relocated substation might have. Chief Hooker, Chief Hempel, Butch Shaw, the zoning officer, the highway foreman, and I will meet at the site Friday, June 18th at 1 o'clock for further discussions to kind of evaluate the site. I think Jeff Biasuzi, the zoning officer, is going to be flagging the boundary lines. He's already provided some input on the permitting that would be required, whether there's Act 250 involvement, wastewater permits, that kind of thing. And so we hope to kind of get a more solid idea of what our features list will be. Then we can, at some point, talk to contractors about pricing for this project. So early days still.
All right, and the parking area at the rec?
As you know, Madam Chair, 4 out of our 5 selectmen made it on a rainy Tuesday night on June 8th at the rec to look at the proposed area for the additional parking area. Jen Pop, the rec director, and Rob Ketchum of the rec committee confirmed that parking is in short supply, especially as programs get more popular during these summer months. And we looked at the area between the asphalt walkway that leads to the tennis court and the left field foul line of the ball field, the lower ball field. And Chad Ujer kind of walked through his ideas about construction if it was to be done in-house. He thought that we could, first thought we could excavate some material, bring in some stone, compact it. However, on further thought, given the grade difference there, he thought maybe we could just drop the stone and some filter fabric on top of the existing depressed grade area. And there's also even talk that Omea might contribute some of its tailings to maybe eat into our stone purchasing budget. That could help. And so Dave had asked how much is in our capital account for the rec department. It is coincidentally about $13,000. But if we could save a few thousand maybe on the stone and less time to excavate off that material, maybe there'd be some savings where we have a few thousand left in that fund. If the board wants to kind of give us the approval to move forward with the project.
I think so. It definitely got to be needed down there, so.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to move forward with this project with, without excavating anything out of there, just laying the fabric and going in on top and hopefully being able to get the tailings from Omea.
Yeah, and doing it in-house.
And doing it all in-house, yes.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Great. Thank you. I'll let everybody know.
Thanks. All right, and then Florence Bridge.
Yes, I met with the highway foreman and the engineers for the project, and Greg and Tom Markowski, on Thursday, June 10th. We kicked around what might be the source of the disconnect between the engineer's estimate on the project cost and the low bid that Markowski submitted. There were no kind of light bulb moments over anybody's head. So further research and discussions are in the offing. I've spoken with Representative Shaw, who's well aware of grant funding programs that flow through the state. I've also spoken with Devin Neary, who's our transportation link over at the Regional Planning Commission, to inform them of the situation. Tomorrow, I will be meeting again at the site, this time with the highway foreman and Brian Sanderson of VTrans. He's the funding contact that we have for this project, and the project engineers will also be there. So hopefully VTrans will put its eyes on the project, and who knows, maybe they will have some suggestions on a path forward.
Yeah.
So I ran into Sean Erickson.
Oh.
He's working on my road, and said when they did the boring under that, it is basically muck. But I guess some of the stuff I would like for us to look into, I just can't believe that putting a culvert in there was going to be cheaper than putting that cement thing in there. You've had culverts in there. What have they been in there? 50, 60 years. They haven't gone anywhere. I'm going to say this, but the fact that the engineering firm that told us to go with the cement culvert is part of or related to the company that made the culvert, I kind of have a little problem with that. So I mean, I would like to see the figures on what size culvert would be needed and what that culvert would cost. Because I understand if they put that cement culvert in, which weighs tons and tons and tons, they probably do need those pilings underneath it. However, those two culverts that have been in there have been there forever, and they're staying there, and I can't believe another one put in there wouldn't stay. So I just think there's a lot of things here that need to be looked at.
Certainly, we are trying to look at all the options. When we talk about managing the river flow, we are required by law and state policy to talk first with a hydraulic engineer, and the state provides that service to us. Then we usually take the hydraulic study and talk to the stream management people and also the wetlands people, as they have their own rules as to what they will allow in their riverbeds. The Army Corps of Engineer has a role to play when there's enough of a drainage in that area that their jurisdiction is implicated. And so they also have issued the permit, all of which have certain minimum requirements for size, depth, stream full bank handling of storm events. So those are some of the limitations we're working with. But as I say, at this point, I'm definitely open to all suggested alternatives, one of which is to not proceed with the project. I mean, that's certainly an option. But Sean Erickson, I think maybe will tell you that over the years, when we've done these culvert inventories, as the state has persuaded us to do, and tried to dangle money to get us to address undersized culverts, this one was kind of next on the list after having replaced about 6 other ones throughout the town. And I don't know if at some point the state will require culverts that are deemed undersized to be replaced, but we haven't got to the point where they're demanding it. We simply knew that it was next on our list of things to do. We thought we had a budget that was handleable in 2 grant cycles, and that's why we were all disappointed when we saw the low bids. So that's kind of it. That's exactly what I'll tell Ryan Sanderson tomorrow. I don't know whether the answer is, can we not proceed? And then what happens with the grants that have been assigned to the town? We do have a structure that's been built, so that's an issue. Can it be used elsewhere? Perhaps that's something to investigate. And then maybe the answer is Brian's willing to provide further extension of time and the hope of more money to do the project. I don't know that.
Right.
So that'll be something discussed tomorrow and beyond.
Well, I understand, you don't want to put too small a culvert in there, but I stopped the other day and looked at it. There certainly doesn't look to be any sign of erosion in there from those two culverts that are there over the years.
Sure.
But again, I can't believe that, a squashed out, whether it's got to be a 6, 8, 10, whatever it's got to be for a culvert that will handle more water than those 2-3 footers will.
Do you think it'd be helpful at the next meeting to have the stream alteration permitting person, Josh Carvajal, come and kind of give us his rationale for why he thought we needed a larger structure? That could be helpful. I'm a layman. I can do the best I can, but the people who actually know might do a better job explaining.
No, I understand. And I get the fact you want it big enough. I mean, the idea is you want it big enough so the stream doesn't speed up. Because if you're shoving all this water through a small pipe, when it comes out the other end, it speeds up and it destroys stuff. I fully understand why they want a bigger structure. I just don't think it needs to be a 100-ton structure. It could just as well be a 1-ton culvert. That's, I guess, where I'm not arguing over the size. I'm just arguing over the weight of the structure you're putting in there and what you've got to do to support the weight of that cement structure.
In a way, it sounds like this proposal is a make-work project. Wouldn't you?
It's certainly true that Vermont wants to encourage / persuade towns to improve their stormwater infrastructure. That's definitely true.
Well, no, and I have no argument with that. That makes perfect sense. That isn't my point at all.
I'm not trying to answer. I'm trying to answer Joe's comment.
Yeah.
But there hasn't been any problem. At least I may not have all the information I should have to be speaking about it, but I haven't heard anybody say that there's been a problem, that the old culverts were ready to fail, that if we don't do something, it's going to be a disaster in the foreseeable future. I haven't heard anything about that.
The one thing I did hear, and this is anecdotal, is Chad saying that according to Sean Erickson, I don't know if you had asked him about this point, but that he was out running the roads on Irene. And Chad says that Sean reported that he was very much surprised that that storm's pressure on these culverts didn't blow that road out.
Which would have been a good thing.
Yes.
Well, we'd had it fixed.
I agree with you.
But if it held up for that, and again, I'm not arguing over that. Probably there needs to be a bigger culvert in there. I'm not arguing that at all. I'm just thinking you're putting way too much structure in there weight-wise.
The reason for the numbers, as I understood it from Greg Markowski, first of all, he did comment that he thought the design seemed appropriate for the site. And these are the contractors.
Yeah.
He said one of the reasons for the cost is the ongoing need to manage the river flow while you're doing the project. He also said, yes, the piles probably contribute $130,000, give or take, to the project. And the engineers, and I'll follow up with them tomorrow, suggested maybe they could seek a second opinion about the need for the piles, but that might, not give us the answer we're looking for and might cost a few $1,000.
Those are because of the clay, right? The pilings needed.
Well, it's muck.
The muck, as Dave
It's a
says.
swamp.
Yeah.
But to put in a different type of structure than was proposed, that muck it might be tolerable.
Well, the two culverts that are in there
working.
have been working.
Yeah. Now maybe
And
they
the
need to-
flotation of a culvert is a lot different than the flotation of a massive cement structure. And again, I'm not arguing with anything. I just
I know.
question why, are we putting such a heavy structure in an area that's possibly unstable, and then you've got to go through the expense of stabilizing, et cetera, when you could do the same thing with something different that should be cheaper.
Did you say there's another walkthrough?
Of what?
of this area. What were you, I thought you just said there was another walkthrough or a meeting you were,
There's a meeting tomorrow at 10 at the site.
right?
Feel free to come.
Yeah, I kind of want to just,
Absolutely.
I've never actually gotten out of the car and like looked at it.
Oh, sure.
So,
Yeah.
what time, 10?
10 o'clock. Yep.
All right, All right, so I guess we just have the update on the ARPA
Yes.
funds.
The Vermont League of Cities and Towns conducted a webinar this morning on how Vermont towns can signal their desire for the offered federal funding through the American Rescue Plan Act. The process appears fairly straightforward. Towns need to provide information through a state portal by approximately July 23rd, because the state plans to ask the feds for the money on June 23rd, and that will trigger a 30-day clock ticking by which the towns have to say, yes, I want the money. And by the way, yes, I'm willing to abide by the terms and conditions that come with it. Those do not appear to be too onerous or to require us to do anything we don't ordinarily do anyway. For example, compliance with the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And so the town will then, once we access those funds, the town again will have till December 31st, 2024 to commit the funds, and December 31st, 2026 to spend the funds. The total funding in this portion of the ARPA money coming to the towns is $58,788,239 for Vermont municipalities. The town's allocation will be $291,765 to arrive in two equal installments of $145,883. The first tranche will come soon after we ask for the money through the portal, and the second will come sometime next year. Now, this is a detail, but an important one. There is also an additional $121,202,000 amount coming to Vermont through its counties. The feds think that every state has a strong county system, and so that's why 2/3 of the money is going through the counties. That's obviously a glitch for Vermont, and so the legislature and the governor and VLCT are all trying to persuade the feds not to do it that way. But if they do it that way, it may be that the money kind of washes through the counties. They might take a little bit for the courthouses or law enforcement, and whatever's left come through the towns eventually. So that seems to be something to be paying attention to in the future.
Now, isn't that, I mean, I'm just thinking quick here, but isn't that something that they could run through regional planning commissions? Because every county's got one.
Yeah.
And have them allocated out for projects because they know the towns better. That way, maybe you bypass the court systems and the sheriffs.
It could certainly be how it works out. For now, that's how the law is written in the federal law. The Regional Planning Commission will play a role in guiding towns on what projects are eligible and best management practices to oversee projects and spend on them. VLCT will also be a resource we can look to, but one thing we really need to remember is that there's plenty of time for us to consider how you'd like to spend the money when you get it. The first thing that needs to be done is for the towns, including Pittsford, to go onto this portal, provide the 20 answers to the 20 questions that are there to kind of register. And the towns will need to, again, commit to terms and conditions. There's no local matching involved. And also to appoint a town representative and also a contact person. So we might be able to discuss this further with you on July 7th, unless you'd like to just designate the person now and we can get on the portal sooner.
I'd like to make a motion that we designate our town manager to go on this portal and sign up for this.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good.
We do
That's
have to choose like because I know I was on that webinar too, and they thought that,
a contact person as well.
yeah,
So
well, that
maybe
contact person would be you, and I think one of us would be the authorized, because it said that we were the ones ultimately accountable for how this money gets spent.
Well, you do
Yes.
operate through a town manager, so
No,
I
I'm
could
just
do
saying
it.
what that's what.
I was
you know.
thinking that the contact person might be Pat, since she's the bookkeeper for the town.
All right,
She'd be the one who basically be able to give the financial information and help with the reporting that'll be needed.
And then we have to like warn a meeting too, right? As we're discussing about how we're.
You definitely don't have to, but they suggest it because everyone's going to feel like, hey, you've got some windfall money.
I wrote down,
We'd like
need to warn meetings.
we'd like
That's
to-
what I heard.
We'd like to play a role in giving public input. So yeah, by all means, you will have 2 or 3 town meetings before the deadline comes up.
Yeah,
So there'll be plenty of opportunities and you can create your own standalone ones to do so.
okay.
Yeah, for sure. Great.
All right, yeah, and we'll just have to, I guess, figure out ways to solicit input.
Yeah, absolutely. We can start drafting up information pieces for newsletters and web
Yeah.
pages, and we will have to remind people what the 4 broad categories are so that we don't get lots of crazy ideas out of right field, which could still happen.
Those broad categories, though, the more I listen to these webinars, the more like information's come down, are kind of starting to be like even today they're talking about even direct cash payments to businesses and towns, like things like it was kind of got to like where it could be.
Those all sound quite dangerous to me. When you start picking who's going to get
Well, that's no.
free money.
No.
I know, but they did just keep adding all these and you could get around this by saying it was due to this.
You can get away from some of the restrictions with the revenue loss category. You know,
That's
one of the categories says say that the federal government assumes a 4.1% growth in your budget from year to year. And as Ted Brady, the VLCT director, says, he doesn't know of any town whose budget increases 4.1%.
No.
And we level funded. So that money that we can demonstrate, we came up short of that 4.1%, is available to us with no strings as to how we need to spend it. But other portions are restricted, like if you want to do a water and sewer project, that qualifies,
Yeah.
or broadband, that certainly qualifies.
Okay. All right, we're done with the open part of our meeting.